Hello, everyone. Hello, my friends. It is so good to see you. Welcome to this event in Dear Detail, a look into the William Stafford Archive. This event is put on by the Stafford Challenge along with the Lewis and Clark Watzek Library. In just a little bit, I'll introduce Crystal Willer to who's going to be giving this presentation. But in the meantime, I just want to make a couple of announcements, a couple of welcomes, and such like that. So, first of all, as I said, this is put on by the Stafford Challenge. Many of you are members of the Stafford Challenge. So welcome. I see a lot of familiar faces, but some of you aren't. This is an event that is open to the whole public. So if you aren't familiar with the Stafford Challenge, it's an international poetry project that was inspired by the great poet William Stafford and his practice of writing a poem every morning. And so we are committing to writing a poem a day for a year starting January 17th. Registration is now open for the 2026 cohorts, and I'm going to go ahead and put the link in the chat. Hold on one second. I apologize. So if you are interested in learning more, you could go ahead to staffordchallenge.com and learn more about the project. And we'd love to have you. I'm not going to take too much time right here to explain about it. I also want to share that one of the things of the Stafford Challenge that we're excited about is last year, and we're going to do it again this year, we were able to put out an anthology, which is really exciting. And so last year's had original poems from over 200 poets who participated in the challenge, including Kim Stafford, Naomi Shihab Nye, C. Marie Furman, Emily Ligren, Judith Kate Friedman, and just gobs of wonderful, wonderful poets. I love reading through this. I'm really proud of this. And if you're interested in learning more, I'll put a link in there how to get access to that book. And with that said, I want to go ahead and welcome Crystal. I'm going to go ahead and read her bio, and then we will get started. Crystal Willer is the Associate Archivist at Lewis and Clark College's Watzek Library. Willer earned her MFA in poetry from Washington University in St. Louis and her MLIS from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. She lives here in Portland, Oregon with her husband and daughters, and I am so excited to welcome her and take it away, Crystal.
Hey, thank you so much, Brian, and thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here. Let me just share my slides. 1 second. Okay, do you see the promo slide? Okay. So again, yes, happy to be here. I am the Associate Archivist here at Watzek Library. I wanted to just talk briefly about the William Stafford Archive in its entirety, which is quite extensive. William Stafford, I'm sure everyone here knows, but he was a tremendously influential poet, and he taught at Lewis and Clark College for over 40 years. And so we are blessed to have his archive of all of his papers here at the library. It is a large collection, one of the foundational collections for our special collections and archives, 130 linear feet approximately. That's a hard thing for me to conceptualize. So I actually have, so this image you're looking at in my virtual background is one shelf of that archive. I think it could be useful to sort of conceive of about 4 to 5 of these shelves as sort of the extent of what we have. It is archival terms processed and arranged into many different series and subseries. I'm not going to talk about that, but I'm happy to talk about that at a different time. But it is, yes, I'm going to talk about sort of 3 materials that we have here and sort of how those materials can show poetic choices that Stafford made. And then sort of toward the end of my talk, artistic choices that other people have made of his work. So one of the, again, you're here for the Stafford Challenge. So the daily writings that William Stafford did is one of the main sort of sections of the archive. So again, he wrote every day, which is just, I can't imagine, but so we have, close to 20,000 pages of daily writings. This is just an image of those boxes and some of the what the writings look like. We're going to look more in detail at some of these. But Kim Stafford, who is here, I'm happy to see. We actually have his archive as well, but he was kind enough to sort of show me and talk about how the daily writings often have 4 elements or 4 parts. So you have a date, exploratory prose, sort of a freestanding idea, and then, or an aphorism, and then a poem or beginning of a poem. So we'll look at that kind of structure that is rather cohesive throughout. And then we're going to look at documentary copies. So these are revisions, typed revisions of Stafford's poems. These are really useful to track changes and poetic choices, but also publication submissions, rejections, and acceptances. So the poem Looking for Someone that's on this screen, the small image on the bottom my left, are the places that Stafford sent, including Harper's Poetry, Poetry Northwest, before it was actually taken by the Hudson Review on October 5th. So this is really great material, documentary evidence to have. So I'm going to focus sort of on those 2 things that really show the drafts of a poem and the changes made. I thought I would look first at a very well-known anthologized poem, Ask Me, which also has its daily writing as today, December 11th, but in 1974. And we can see here that sort of structure. So you have the date, you have at Sisters, the whole roof is up, the house enclosed, and then you have some other prose, sort of aphorism. Here, touched with genius, the girl turned aside. Every value has commitment for its foundation. What if you questioned, held the value but questioned? She became Miss America, though no one knew. Outside of America, her symptoms became footnotes in annals of the learned. I'll say this right now, like, I am not the best reader of Stafford's handwriting, but I have the pleasure of sort of time to try to get acquainted with it. And then you have here sort of where the poem starts, sometime when the river is ice, ask me mistakes I have made, which may sound familiar to those of you who know that poem. And then on the right is just that same daily writing, but just written again. And then we have more. We have actually typed the handwritten Ask Me title, and then this documentary copy, Ask Me. So I'm going to play William Stafford reading this. This is from a reading he gave at Lewis and Clark in 1979, and I included some sort of comments before he gets to the poem because I think it's interesting and useful.
I'm thinking about people, other people, who have retired recently, or who are thinking about it. And I think one of the scrambly things I feel about it is it's no big deal, sort of. You work a while, and you do something else a while, and you want to keep on leveling with people. And so I have some poems in here, some poems about other earlier people on this campus who have retired. But this is more just like a statement by someone who's sort of wedged into a place in life. It's called Ask Me. And I want to read it. If I had the nerve of my feelings, I'd read it even more slowly, but I want to read it fairly slowly anyway, it seems to me like a slow poem. Sometime when the river is ice Ask me mistakes I've made. Ask me whether what I've done is my life. Others have come in their slow way into my thought, and some have tried to help or to hurt. Ask me what difference their strongest love or hate has made. I will listen to what you say. You and I can turn and look at the silent river and wait. We know the current is there hidden, and there are comings and goings from miles away that hold the stillness exactly before us. What the river says, that is what I say.
And then I just want to show here this last line. You can see in this documentary copy that it was originally typed, whatever the river says is what I say, and it has been changed to what the river says, comma, that is what I say. So just like that's a very small detail, but those are the kind of wonderful details that exist in these archives. I'm going to turn now to the poem In Dear Detail by Ideal Light, which is, archivally speaking, like an amazing title for someone interested in archives. But it also is a poem for which we have many, many, many drafts and many, many iterations of. This is a screenshot of a website, williamstaffordarchives.org. So this is all available to you. I'm not going to go through every draft because it would take far too long, but I will just show a few. But I thought, because I think it's just a really interesting, poem with many drafts. So this is how it was published when it was first published in Poetry Magazine in 1959. And again, I'm just going to play him, Stafford, reading it, and then we'll look at different things.
This is called In Dear Detail by Ideal Light. It's in 3 parts. Part 1. Night huddled our town, plunged from the sky. You moved away. I save what I can of the time. In other towns, calling my name, home people hail me, dazed. Those moments we hold, reciting in the evening, reciting about you, receding through the huddle of any new town. Can we rescue the light that happened and keeps on happening around us? Gradually, we left you there, surrounded by the river curve and the held-out arms, elms under the street light. These vision emergences come wherever we go, blind homes striking near at unlikely places. Part 2. One's duty to find a place that grows from his part of the world. It means leaving certain good people. Think, near High Trail, Colorado, a wire follows cottonwoods, helping one to know like a way on trust. That lonely strand leaves the road depending on limbs or little poles and slants away, hunting a ranch in the hills. There, for the rest of the years, by not going there, a person could believe some porch looking south and steady in the shade, maybe you, rescued by how the hills happen to arrive where they are, depending on that wire going to an imagined place. The last part. Wherever any wire leads, that person on the porch may be there by chance on the way. Think of that person. Neat. Knowing touches the throat. Calamities leap from good luck. Some sounds inform all the air and engulf us. Stop. Recognize convergences nobody sought. Cottonwoods might break the sky. One's duty to follow the wire radiating out from any trail into stillness anywhere of such land at the end that finally The way the world feels really means how things are in dear detail by ideal light all around us.
Okay. And then this is the poem as it appeared in the book Traveling Through the Dark in 1962. So you can see it's shorter. It was cut. This third section is mainly cut, except the last stanza of the poem is retained as the last stanza of this poem. So now let's go to some of the daily writings. So on my left is May 13th. Again, and I don't know how this looks. This may look rather hard to decipher, but May 13th, we have daily writings, and it's unlike in Ask Me, right? We don't have this poem just like fully formed, but we do have little intriguing snippets and aspects that will come back. So we do have, I'm going to try to read this part with the bar. Where trees live, or where trees are, I like the trees, but where the land begins to know its land alone, I really like. And best of all, where curving in, a prairie stream offers a line of cottonwoods you could follow away. Right, so we have a little bit of the line of the cottonwoods, and then farther down we have at Deer Trail, Colorado, a stream went among receding hills that were just the land moving. In the poem, it's High Trail, Colorado, but we do see this Deer Trail, Colorado occur again and again. And then here we have two questions. What is place? Why do I ask why? These are not questions that occur, of course, in the poem, but I do think they are questions that the poem is concerned with and involved with and sort of, writes around. If we jump to June 29th, we have sort of halfway down, leaping the scene of everything in dear detail by ideal light, and then clears my dream sight. So we have that phrase that will eventually be the last stanza and the title. We're gonna move again. I'm doing a bit of jumping, but we have June 30th. We have this rain goes where it can, finding the earth under leaves and then away in the ditch. Always the rain knows where it should be expected, in dear detail by ideal light. Reading through some of these daily writings, there is this sort of rain and the stream that becomes a line. And then farther, July 7th, we have I have lost heaven just greeting a neighbor, and then calamity from good luck, fire of teaching to life, which in the poem, in that third section, we have knowing touches the throat, calamities leap from good luck, right? So you can see that there are parts of the poem that are sort of occurring, starting to emerge. This July 9th, we have like sort of an outline almost. We have it says a long poem in dear detail by ideal light, and then we have these three sections. After night huddled the town, which is very close to what the first line. And then we have here on the right, we have a typed out stanza in section 2 that then William Stafford has renumbered the order of the lines. So the first line, Deer Trail, Colorado, where a stream follows the cottonwoods, right? So again, some of the interesting sort of, you can see one, like both the changes and thoughts he had, but also sort of the way in which he would revise, like writing the number versus, arrows or different ways. On here we have actually a section 4, and I'm gonna read this part, hopefully. Hopefully I will read it correctly. But following me, but hoping the way I feel means how the page, I actually don't, means how something. I have to remember in dear detail by ideal light all that might surround me again. All we can do is to follow the wire and hope for country like Deer Trail and the stillness there of the land at the end. And then we have actually like a typescript draft, but with the 2 stanzas that will be flipped. So here we have the opening differently. It was my duty to find whatever town was my part of the world. And then what becomes the first stanza, after night huddled our town, plunging down from the sky, I moved away, a young man which was cut out, saving what I could of that time. And then we have this is the documentary copy of that poem from 58. And so this is quite just like very similar to what ends up in poetry. And down here you can see he wrote accepted by poetry. What's interesting is up at this top it says Harper's wants just part 2, and then later he writes Feb 62 I sent parts 1 and 2 with last stanza part 3 were finally it, right, the opening of that last stanza. So that's sort of a fast and sort of, again, like not a complete iteration of every draft, but different areas where you can see him making different poetic choices and different revisions and trying different lines. I'm gonna now turn to sort of, if you think of like the second sort of half of the talk. So we've looked at daily writings and documentary copies and poem drafts and revisions. I wanted to turn now to poetry broadsides, which are sort of more visually interesting, so hopefully good for this talk, but a way to sort of think about how more contemporary poets and artists have interpreted Stafford's work. And so by poetry broadside, I just mean any single piece of paper with a poem printed on it. It usually often has some sort of visual, like an illustration, a woodcut, a design. It doesn't have to. It could just be typographically interesting, different fonts, you know, arranged in a certain way. So we have about 270 printed broadsides of William Stafford poems exclusively. This has also allowed us as an archive to sort of build other collections of poetry broadsides. So we have a poetry broadside collection of other contemporary poets, often contemporary with Stafford, and we're still building that. So I recently acquired a collection of broadsides by Mills College, sort of more recent contemporary poets. And these items are, you know, in the same way that showing students sort of the decisions and revisions are engaging, these broadsides are really useful for teaching students here. I often go into an advanced poetry class and talk about how poetry broadsides affect our reading of the poem, and then the students design their own broadside. So I just thought we would look at a few, and then afterwards, I hope we can sort of all have a conversation, or at least talk about what we've seen. So this is the same poem, A Walk in September, designed by the same artist, Wang Huiming, from 1971. And I think this is a useful way of sort of thinking about how text and illustration can work together. So the image on my right, which is with the text sort of in with the trees and the branches, so that the font almost becomes similar to the branches and the trees. It's sort of all one, and in some ways harder to read, a little bit more integrated, and in some ways kind of busy. And then the one on the left, it's a different way of sort of, it's a different type of landscape, right? You sort of have more space, more white space, a little bit more calm, I guess, at least to me. Sorry. And then we have, again, we have 2 broadsides by 2 different artists, 2 different presses, the same poem. So The Light by the Barn. And here, you know, the broadside on my left, they have focused on the barn in the title, and then the one on the right seems to really have focused on the light in the title, right? So, and the poem itself is justified differently. So the one on the left, it is left justified with these couplets and the last line, and then in the one on the right, they're center justified. So that does change the poem a little bit. And then we're coming back to that poem Ask Me that we saw earlier. This is a really wonderful large broadside with an illustration by Hank Pander from 1981 that is always, it's always a favorite with students. It's an interesting thing to show. And then it's fun for me to pair this with something by a broadside, well, kind of like a broadside turning into an artist book, but by Anne Bingham from Hurdy-Gurdy Press from 2005. And it is, I'm gonna hold it up right here, but it is very small. And it opens up and it has these wonderful leaves. And so the text itself kind of becomes like a river in how you're reading it. A little bit harder to read, a little bit, again, like sort of, yeah, I don't want to make any broad claims, but I think that the text is kind of more sort of within the paper itself rather than just on top of it. So those are some different broadside poetic choices. I also just wanted to share this ode to garlic because I was recently watching some videos of Stafford, and this gets to another aspect of the broadside, which is sort of its ephemeralness, right? Like oftentimes they're created for a reading or for like a particular event, and this is actually, anyway, I love this. I'm going to play William Stafford reading the poem, but also explaining the poem, so it will become more clear.
About, and I want to mention another restaurant in our city, which had the enterprise to put on a 7-course banquet, all 7 courses, including dessert, based on garlic. This was a few years ago. And the person who was in charge of the garlic banquet got in touch with me and said, if you will write something about garlic, we'll print it on the menu and you may have a free banquet. And your wife too. My wife said, yes, Bill, write something. So this is Ode to Garlic. It was printed on the menu. Sudden it comes for you in the cave of yourself where you know and are lifted by important events. Say you are dining and it happens. Soaring like an eagle, you are pierced by a message from the midst of life. Memory, what holds the days together, touches your tongue. It is from deep in the earth, and it reaches out kindly, saying, hello, old friend. It makes us alike, all offspring of powerful forces, part of one great embrace of democracy, united across every boundary. You walk out generously, giving it back in a graceful wave. What you've been given. Like a child again, you breathe on the world and it shines. Dorothy ate all 7 courses, including the garlic ice cream with a chocolate-covered clove on top. I ate 6 courses.
So this is from the restaurant Vaughn. This on my left, and then it was made later into a broadside by the Clamshell Press. That image on the right, and then it actually was. This is kind of a weird slide, but this was it was printed in Poet and Critic from 1984. The poem, which we've already seen, but also this commentary, which again has William Stafford sort of writing about how this poem came to be, but interestingly, writes about how he actually took a poem that he had written earlier and never circulated anywhere, maybe this way. It is sudden when the sky comes. Oh, sorry. Is it sudden when the sky comes for you? In the cave of yourself, are you lifted? Could you be walking and it happen? Sometimes it's an eagle. You are pierced, borne away like a message that someone wanted out of the midst of life. And sometimes you just give back to the world a graceful wave, what you've been given. Generous again, you're a child, paid back to that other world. And then again, this is the rest of the commentary. But it's he talks about sort of being a strange mock heroic poem, Ode to Garlic, and then has some humor here, definitely in I still don't know if I did right stealing my early poem in order to have a garlic dinner. And sometimes I think about redeeming that early serious poem and trying for a career as a writer with principles. But the banquet tasted good. So again, that is, let me see what time. Yeah, so that is what I have. I have some other things. I have some correspondence that we can share if we want. But I thought this might be a good time to answer any questions or have a conversation. But before that, I do just want to say thank you for coming to this and listening to me talk. But also mainly to say that our archive, the William Stafford Papers, the Kim Stafford Archive, is available to anyone. Like, you do not need to be affiliated with Lewis and Clark College. All you have to do is reach out and arrange a time and come see some of these materials. They really are here for anyone. So maybe I'll pause there and see if we do have any questions.
Thank you so much, Crystal. That was phenomenal. It was so interesting. I loved every aspect of it. This is a great moment, everyone. If you have a question, there's enough of us that we can't unmute ourselves to ask question. Otherwise, it could get chaotic. So we're going to do everything through the chat. So go ahead and put your questions in there, and I will read them out to Crystal. And Crystal, in case you're looking at the chat, or if you aren't, there's just a lot of praise and gratitude for you right now. So, so there were two questions that had come before, but one, I think you just answered, but it was, can the public view the broadsides? So.
Yes, absolutely. So we do have some on a digital collection, but yes, like again, all of these materials are for anyone with an interest. And so that's really, I mean, so my job as an associate archivist, I do a lot of things like process new collections and answer reference questions. But my favorite part of my job is just facilitating access to these materials to anyone. So yes, we are we're in the Watzek library on campus. Our hours are a little bit shorter. They're 10 to 4 Monday through Friday, but as long as we can find a time that works, you're welcome to come. So if you want to email archives@oclark.edu, I answer that. Or you could, yeah. So I welcome, viewing. This sort of faded image is of the reading room, which is where you would come to view materials. And this is actually from a class where broadsides are out. Some William Stafford broadsides are right on that table.
So two questions that dovetail right into each other. One, someone said, I'm curious if there are any items that reflect his teaching materials. And another person right after that said, are there notes from events or workshops that he conducted?
Yes, yeah, there are both of those. So we have a whole sub-series of his teaching materials. He has a lot of interesting like note cards where he's written notes for different classes that he taught. There are, what was the second?
And about like workshops and events that he conducted.
There is that material. Again, there is, so there's Archives West, which is the consortial database with the finding aids. And again, I don't know that we're not going to get into the nitty gritty, but yes, I can, if you want to email me and I can sort of show you or sort of elaborate on that, I'm happy to. If you want to go on Archives West and try to find your way around, yes, the answer is yes.
Wonderful. There is a question here that says, I don't know if I fully understand the question, but says some of the poets who influenced William Stafford, or was it more about the world around him? I don't know if I'm 100% meaning that. Maybe you can just sort of take that and interpret that question.
Sure. Can you read it again? Sorry.
Yeah, it says some of the poets who influenced William Stafford. So the whole comment was, "What a generous serving of poetic goodies." Thank you. Question: some of the poets who influenced William Stafford, or was it more about the world around him? Maybe
Sure.
maybe meaning other aspects of the archive and such.
Yeah. Yeah. We have a lot of other, maybe I, well, we have a lot of his other writing, like prose and speeches, and a great wealth of part of the archive is his correspondence. So we have a lot of correspondence that he has with other poets. That kind of oftentimes a sub-series of correspondence can kind of give one a lens into that kind of a world of connections, right? Who you write letters to, what, not only what you're saying, but who are you corresponding with, talking to. I feel like that's another great resource in terms of, yeah, who Stafford was.
And is it searchable
Yes, it
by
is.
other poets as well, or other people?
Yes. So there's the finding aid for correspondence, and this is what I do too. I just do a control F, put in the name and search. And I'll just, since we are mentioning that, I do have one other slide, which is is a letter that Charles Bukowski wrote to William Stafford, which has been in different exhibits and sort of more widely circulated, and then a letter that I personally really like the work of Frank Stanford, which is similar last name but different, who was a poet and also a land surveyor, which you could see on the screen. But yeah, I just searched, when I have been at the archive for about 3.5 years, and I don't get the opportunity to spend a lot of time, digging through this archive, which is why giving this talk was so fun. But sometimes I do just kind of, search for poets that I myself like and sort of see, and I'm rarely I'm rarely disappointed. There are often some amount of correspondence that between William Stafford and them.
Great, thank you. A couple more questions. One, Deborah Grayson clarified what her question was, which was, who are some of Stafford's major influences? Do you know
Oh,
that, or are you able to see that from the archive?
um, I feel like there are others here that would probably be better at at answering that. Um, yeah, I am not a Stafford scholar. I yeah, so I don't want to make wild conjectures right now.
If you're reading the chat, Kim said that William Stafford always says his mother was a greater influence than any writer. So there you go. Ooh, someone has a question about you. What's your background? How did you become a archivist, whichever the
Oh,
right
yeah,
way to say it is?
yeah. So I actually I went to Lewis and Clark as an undergraduate, close to or 20 years ago, a little bit more than 20 years ago, and was an English major. So I took poetry from Mary Shebist, who had just come here, and I then I worked in the library as a student, not in special collections. It wasn't really um, it wasn't a place where a lot of students worked yet, but at the circulation desk. And then I worked at Powell's Books for a long time after graduating, and then I went to an MFA program in St. Louis at Washington University. And so I've always loved and written poetry, but working in a library and a bookstore, I kind of also knew that I was always interested in books and in the literary world. And I have taught poetry, but I didn't want to become an adjunct professor at that time. So anyway, long story short, but I ended up going to library science school. In between there, when I was teaching poetry workshops, I would take my students to special collections at WashU, and we would look at different poem drafts by James Merrill, by Mona Van Dunn, by other poets, and I really loved that those days, so much so that I would sort of talk to the archivist and special collections librarian there. So that kind of piqued my interest in library science and archives, and then I went and got a master's. And I've worked at different archives. Before coming here, I was at Oberlin in their music archive. I mean, I love it because you get to work with just a lot of different material, including poems, but a lot of other things. You're sort of in the world of academia and of writing. But yeah, I don't know. It's very much my place, and it's what I love to do.
Thank you. It's good to hear about you. Someone wrote, and I'll answer maybe the first part of this and then you can answer it. The Stafford Challenge is based on the idea of writing a poem every day. What we saw of Stafford's writing today is that he approached the art of writing poetry every day, but worked for days before completing one poem and moving to the next. Is that representative of his work, or did he tend to try and write a different poem every day? I'll start just by saying we do in the Stafford Challenge, for ease, say he wrote a poem every day. What we mean really is he wrote a poem or a scrap of a poem or an idea or something like that every day. But it's easier to just say he wrote a poem every day as a jumping off point for our own intention and our own creative and process and writing practice for the year. So we do say that, but there's a little asterisk right there. But I'll let you kind of answer the bigger question about his archive and
yeah. I mean, again, not a scholar per se, but it's my understanding that in some ways that what we looked at in Dear Detail by Ideal Light is unusual insofar as it had many, many, many drafts. Often it seems like it was closer to what we looked at first, which with Ask Me, where and maybe it's not always that fully formed from a daily writing, but it's somewhere in between. So I believe probably both. I mean, obviously both ways happened, and I'm sure any sort of also like any in between stages. So it's not that he always took 20 different drafts for one poem, but yeah, I mean, I'm also not true that they would always just be fully written in one day, right?
And if we look higher up in the chat, Kim also made this comment saying, this gradual, persistent revision process reminds me of what William Stafford said. Don't be discouraged by short-term outcomes. Artists and seekers are in it for the long haul, right? And so if anyone here is indeed writing a poem a day or not part of the challenge, but writing regularly, what you write at any given time is a draft in a sense until you publish it, right? And even then, as we saw, it can still be revised and changed and such. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think and for the archive, it's so rich and fun to see those different iterations and those different versions. I have tremendous respect for all of you who have done the Stafford Challenge, who are going to do the Stafford Challenge, who can write every day. maybe I will try. Yeah.
And to be clear, the challenge is not to write a good poem every day. It's to write a poem every day.
Yes. I
Okay.
mean, and that is something that William Stafford has said in different recordings or different lectures where he, lower your standards and keep going, I think is one of the things he has said. Yeah.
That's our mantra. Okay, we still have some time, and there's some more questions here. Um, let's see. Can you point to any of his own poems in his archive that, one, speak to his own approach, kind of his craft to writing poetry, and two, his thoughts about appreciating how to see poetry more broadly, generally?
Ooh. Um, I mean, I don't I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't know quite how to answer that. I mean, I think all of the poems that I've seen, I mean, again, like I sort of only get I've looked at some for this talk and I've looked for some that are good requested by researchers. Um, yeah, I mean, I think in every instance, right, you're seeing their approach. I don't know. I don't know if I know of a good example. Um,
No worries.
all right. Yeah.
Um, this question came up a couple of times. So just someone is wondering, or more than one is wondering about the broadsides. Are they categorized by size? Meaning, can someone access like the 8.5 by 11s specifically?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the finding aid lists the dimensions for all of them. So it would be easy to find all the ones that are a certain size. They are not they're not arranged physically exactly by size. So it's not quite that clear cut, but it would be easy to find and to pull any that are any whatever the desired dimension would be, because that information is there.
Um, Great. Someone wrote, this was a question for me. Does revising a poem count as writing a poem for the Stafford Challenge? Really quickly, I'll say this about the Stafford Challenge, which is it is a personal commitment with yourself that we do in community. So you are more than welcome to define what that means for yourself. If revision is feels like that is totally aligned with your commitment to write a poem every day, then 100%. I know for many people, it is the challenge is really about writing an original poem every day. Um, and some people only have a limited time to be able to dedicate to poetry every day. And if for you revision wants to be part of that, absolutely. There's no judgment from me or anyone else in what that means. The broader idea is writing an original poem every day, but you can do as you will. And as someone said, yes, definitely. Besides, who's counting? Um, okay, there. Let's see. I'm just looking at the chat. There's all these wonderful things that people are here. Um, Someone had a question for you, Kim. Said, "Thanks, Kim. Any suggestion about William Stafford on appreciating poetry?" So maybe if you want to put that in the chat. Um, there's just wonderful comments on here, but not necessarily questions. Are there any other questions? We have a few more minutes. Um, and it looks like Crystal, while we're waiting, you also put up a new slide if
Oh,
you want to speak to that.
oh yeah, sorry. This is just my last slide. I didn't fit this in, but this is just a poem that I really love. And this is a version. So this is the little girl by the fence at school, which was originally typed as the little boy by the fence at school, and then was originally in or was at some point in quatrains, and then later became in three-line stanzas, tercets. So we can listen to this too if we want, but
I would love to.
okay, great. It's short.
The little girl by the fence at school. Grass that was moving, found all shades of brown, moved them along, flowed autumn away, galloping southward where summer had gone. And that was the morning someone's heart stopped and all became still. A girl said, "Forever?" And the grass, "Yes, forever." While the sky, the sky, the sky, the sky.
Yeah, I love, I think that's an amazing poem. I love how it, yeah, anyway. I didn't really have a way to fit that in, so it was just at my last slide. Sorry.
It is a perfect spot. So, oh, there was one more question that someone that I saw somewhere along the way of someone lives in Kansas and lives in kind of where William Stafford grew up and is interested if in the archive there's some of that material or anything about his time there.
You know who will know is Steve Paul here, and also probably Kim, I'm sure. I I'm I would be surprised if there wasn't. I can't off the top of my head think of like, I have not recently pulled anything, but I mean I'm sure I'm sure there is. I mean there's his, yeah, writings. I mean I can, if you want to contact me, I can definitely find what I can. And
Ah. This has been so lovely. It's been lovely to come together and just talk poetry, talk William Stafford, and be in this space with you, Crystal, and just everyone here. I am immensely grateful. I'm going to be sending out over the next, I don't know, handful of days. I'll be sending out a email to, if you're part of the Stafford Challenge, I'll send this out automatically, or to anyone who's not, but who registered here, I'll send it out as well. That'll be a link to this recording. I'll put in Crystal's information, so if you want to know how to contact Crystal, you're able to do that. I'll put in the website of the William Stafford Archive, the website of it, so you can do research and searching. A lot of these wonderful things are online there, so you can do that as well. And I'll put more information about the Stafford Challenge itself in case you're interested in learning more about that. You're always welcome to reach out to me if you have any questions about the challenge. You can do it brian@staffordchallenge.com. And thank you all so much for taking an afternoon with us. Many blessings, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care. Bye, everyone.
thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you again, Crystal. So appreciated.